In August 1946, the United States Navy embarked on a 4-month journey on one of the biggest expeditions to Antarctica. But by the 4th month, something happened that would lead to one of the biggest mysteries coming out of Antarctica to this date. In this expedition, it was believed that they were only tracking potential new military sites, but it took Admiral Byrd's curiosity to change the course of the expedition and the United States history with extraterrestrial involvement. Admiral Byrd was one of the most known and respectable naval officers in history. Once Operation Highjump was confirmed as a go, Byrd was one of the first names confirmed to be a part of this expedition. There was such speculation as to what this expedition was supposed to be. Many believed that this was supposed to spread American sovereignty over Antarctica, or investigate supposed found unknown technology that was found in the ice. However, one solid lead connected the Americans to this region, not for the 2 reasons I just mentioned, but because in 1938, a German expedition took place by the SS Swabenland. This mission saw them in search of a hidden underground civilization who has existed there for an unknown amount of years. No one knows where the Germans found these connections and leads for the civilization in Antarctica, but what was confirmed is that they did find something. Already mapping over 100 square miles of territory, they discovered more inland what is described as an Arctic oasis. This area was roughly 300 square miles of free ice, filled with warm water, and even contained some plant life. In terms of an oasis, this similarly mimics a desert oasis, which at times can come across as an anomaly or even a mirage. Were confirmed, this Arctic oasis was discovered as well. What led Americans and other allies to find this region was due to the Nazis and the expedition by SS Swabenland setting up a base here in the Arctic oasis. The Nazis named this Base 211. Over the course of World War II, Base 211 continued to grow as the Germans continued to pour resources into it, making it a massive complex. As the tide of the war turned and the Axis powers were losing, a multitude of weapons, resources, and other mysterious materials were transported to Base 211, which also ended up being used as a gateway of transport, smuggling Nazis into South America to escape answering for their war crimes. It was this gateway program that saw Hans Kammler escape. Kammler, who was in charge of Hitler's weapons secret program, is important because he developed a special prototype long-distance supply plane called Ju-390. What made this plane unique was that at the time, 2 were only made and 1 belonged to Kammler, and by 1945, Kammler nor his plane could be found. One intel released was that Kammler and his team discovered an entrance leading deeper underground, and whatever they discovered within disappeared as well. With no trace of Kammler or his plane, the United States had no other choice but to launch Operation Highjump and learn what happened. What made Operation Highjump significant was not just the attempt to locate a Nazi base, but to learn of a confirmed cave entrance leading to an underground complex that could potentially be hiding Nazi criminals or something far more mysterious. Undertaking such a mission, the United States tapped Admiral Byrd. Byrd was important for this mission not because of any pseudoscience beliefs or side interests, but because there was no other soldier before or after him with his skills. The recipient of the Medal of Honor, Navy Cross, Flying Cross, and the Silver Life-Saving Medal, Byrd carried accolades unmatched. Operation Highjump commenced in 1946 with the official mission on written reports, was just to test equipment in Arctic conditions, study the weather, and other studies. However, with so many reports denied over and over again, it was later released that this expedition was sent to locate Base 211 and destroy it and any other resources that were there. However, what was expected to be a 6 to 8 month mission ended up lasting just 40 days, and by then the bases were evacuated. Here is where Admiral Byrd would cement his legacy not just for his military accolades, but for what he would discover that caused this immediate and mass exodus from Antarctica. With the mission ending abruptly, the fleet retreated to a base in Chile, to where speculation swirled over some wreckage and strange findings that occurred during the mission that cut the mission short. Admiral Byrd himself also spoke to the media, and he discussed that the US faced dangers of hostile forces out of Antarctica. He mentioned that the United States needed to ready itself of facing forces with technology no one has ever seen before. that such forces held spacecraft and other technology that could move between poles at high speeds. It was after these media interviews that upon his return to Washington, Admiral Byrd was debriefed, and after this meeting, he will never utter another word about such forces or any findings in Antarctica again. Operation Highjump would immediately be classified, and anyone who mentioned this mission would be arrested. There was much oddities during this mission, with one involving Admiral Byrd where he went missing for 3 hours. This would be chalked up to radio failure. However, due to these lost 3 hours, Admiral Byrd was also very meticulous about documenting his finds and experiences in his journals. During the debriefing, the US government confiscated these journals, but there was one that they missed. This exact journal Admiral Byrd gave to his son before he died, and what was exposed in this journal changes everything that not only what we know about the government's knowledge of what was really found in Antarctica that ended the mission. According to the journal, at 0800 hours, Admiral Byrd reached the altitude of 2,300 feet and checks in. Roughly an hour later, Byrd notices strange color patterns in the snow and continues to document and check in with base on what he is seeing. But it was at this time that his instruments began to act strange. As he continues on, he is still reporting how his controls and compasses are circling and acting up, but in the distance he sees a mountain range that was not documented before. Curious of this range, he continues towards it, and passing over it, he enters into a valley that is lush and green with vegetation. As Byrd continues through the valley, he was not even aware that the temperature had changed, and with controls now working, he was able to see the temperature reading 74 degrees Fahrenheit. His radio, however, was still out, confirming reports that he was radio silent for 3 hours, but as Byrd flew deeper into the valley, he spots some type of animal. Thinking this could just be an elephant, he was not sure, but as he passed it, Byrd confirms that he has just seen a mammoth-looking animal, which of course should not exist. As he continued over some trees on a hillside, he then spots something that he could never imagine. He sees a crystal city sitting inside a valley. At a total loss for words, Byrd attempts to control the aircraft, but he notices that things feel different, more buoyant. Unsure of what is happening, Byrd now notices 2 disc-shaped aircrafts flying next to him, completely controlling his aircraft. Back at base, simultaneously, strange and violent occurrences began to happen. The USS Currituck and another submarine were struck by beams of light when mobilized and were destroyed. Others saw strange lights in the sky with disc aircrafts flying out of the water. It is what came next that still has experts and government officials with no explanations as the aircrafts in question finally landed Byrd. Upon landing, Byrd was greeted by several humanoid men who explained to him that he had nothing to fear, but they wanted to take him into the city to explain everything further. Upon reaching an underground portion of the city, Admiral Byrd was introduced to an individual who called himself the Master. This individual explained to Byrd that his race were not prepared for atomic energy and that every time their ships came close to Byrd's, they were fired upon. The Master then explained to Byrd that he held a message that he wanted to deliver to his superiors. In the summer of 1947, Admiral Byrd would be debriefed, and in this meeting, he would relay the message to the President about what the Master told him. After this, Admiral Byrd would never speak of Operation Highjump again. It wasn't until a couple of months before Admiral Byrd passed that he left a message before he died. 18 months after Byrd's diary given to his son was released, the Antarctic Treaty was signed between 12 nations, and within this treaty, no one is allowed to go to Antarctica without permission from these 12 nations, and even upon arriving, you are only permitted entry into small, heavily monitored areas. With Antarctica being bigger than Europe and even bigger than the United States, majority of its land is off limits, which only furthers the speculation of what is being hidden out there and why off limits from human exploration.